Hello YouTube, this is Cover 2 Credits, and we're going to be continuing our extended cut footage. We've already done a few topics. I don't know how we're going to end up giving them to you, whether we're going to just have them one big blub, or they cut it in 2 or 3 chunks, or how we're going to handle it. But we got one topic left, and this is a major one, so we're going to divide it up and do its own thing. But what I want to talk about is the transition of media from what I would call prosperous economic times to not so prosperous economic times, and how it's become significantly less of an art form, and how it has become much more big budget corporate suits, and how that has dribbled over into the video game world, and how that's dribbled over into the how that's dribbled over around the world, and how we've moved from an expression of new stories and new ideas into all of these reboots. And
So to preface, when you say media, you're talking film first.
I'm talking film,
Okay.
and we're gonna, like I said,
And
we're gonna talk
television
video games
possibly.
as well, and we're
Yeah.
gonna talk television.
But I mean, we're starting kind of with film.
We're starting with kind of film.
Okay.
And we're going to use that as the baseline.
The
since that's
leaping point.
The most popular. Well, that's debatable now.
Well, let me ask you another question. When you started, you said from a point of progress to, or not progress. How did you word it? Money wise, it was.
From I would say an art form. It's become it. I mean, it always was about the money.
Yeah.
Everything is about the
No,
money.
but I mean, in the very beginning, you had said from a time of
prosperity
to not as much.
What I would view as a intellectual regression.
Okay.
Of the art of movies. Now, granted, all that's not true, and there are exceptions, and we'll talk about those. Mm-hmm. But what I want to get a general sense of where we were at, where we are at, and where we are going.
Yeah.
And to me, there's a lot of things in there that I don't really like, and that worry me. As a consumer of media. And like I said, it's spilled over into a lot of different genres and subgenres, and my question is why? Now, to start, movies have become much less, as with most things, and as with banks, and as with everything else, people have become much less willing to take chances on the big projects. And it's begun to show significantly. Now, what I mean is, we haven't seen any great new IPs recently in the movie media world.
One or two, maybe.
We've seen, people are still coming out with new books all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those that get really popular as books are coming out as movies. But even those stories that have begun to gain popularity are not what I would consider positive influences necessarily. No. You look at things like 50 Shades of Grey, and you look at things like Twilight, which is its own thing and has its own problems. But you look at some of those that have moved from one genre to another, and you look at the huge comic book revolution in movies, and you compare that to we're rebooting Mad Max, and we had a RoboCop reboot, for the love of God. If there was ever a movie that did not need a reboot, it was RoboCop.
RoboCop reboot was alright.
But that's my point. It was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't good. It was okay. Why did we need to reboot RoboCop to make it okay? And why did we take great stories of other genres? Why did we end up with the Resident Evil movies we ended up with? Resident Evil is one of my ultimate favorite IPs, and it is a great story with great characters and great ambiance and great plot. And instead we got a sleazy action movie with a naked chick. Why? There's no reason for that. It is that's my point, though. It has become Hollywood and media in general has become so unwilling to do something different, and that is what has bugged me.
And I agree. I think that the only time you ever get something that would rock that boat would be like when an indie film hits it, like Paranormal Activity, when they first came out.
And
That's something offbeat.
That's become part of it, though, and the indie revolution has become part of it because even in movies and games, and I mean even if you look at the video games, look at the big budget games that have come out in the last 10 years. What have we gotten? We've gotten
shooters.
We've gotten Call of Duties. We've gotten 100 Call of Duties.
Yep.
We've gotten Battlefields. We've gotten like what 6 or 8 Halos, a stupid amount.
Yeah.
We've gotten new Uncharted's and Far Cry's, but none of those games have been great.
And they're kind of cookie cutter now.
And they're cookie cutters.
Now, I mean...
Yeah, and so you've gotten all these huge budget games, like the new Tomb Raider. And why did we need a Tomb Raider? Why couldn't they just make a new Tomb Raider? Why did we need a reboot?
Well...
I don't understand. Granted, some people really like that game,
well,
but to me, it was a
it's the same like
disappointment.
Wolfenstein. Why do they need to reboot it? Basically because with video games, unlike with movies, I guess maybe with movies.
Well, I mean, the technology
but
has created a gap.
That's what I mean. So it's like once those next gen things started hitting, and we've gotten far enough away from the original Tomb Raider and the original Wolfenstein, that now there's a lot more able to be done with that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand those reboots, but to me, in movies, even if you're going from a 2D to a 3D or a 2D to an IMAX styled, that's still not enough of a change to warrant sometimes the reboot.
Yeah, and like I said, it's...
I think their thoughts, though, are when you can get 2 to 3 generations of people between when the movie originally came out and when a reboot can come out, there's a lot of money to be made. One, because the United States is based on nostalgia more than anything. Think about it.
Granted.
So, anytime you go back and you're saying, okay, we're going to make a sequel, not a reboot, Mad Max, and you're going to reboot RoboCop, people are like, all right, now RoboCop didn't make that much money. Mad Max is making a lot of money. I think that's part of it. I think the fact that somebody's like, I remember watching, it's the same idea. How did that last Indiana Jones movie do well in the box office? Because it was not a good movie. It didn't matter. Because people were like, it's another Indiana Jones movie, and they remembered going and seeing the first ones with their families.
The new Jurassic
like,
Park.
we're going to see, it's going to make money. You keep saying you don't think it'll be good. It's going to make money nonetheless.
I agree. And like I said, to me, it is an unwillingness to take chances with your money.
Yeah.
And to me, it all started at the economic downturn, early 2000s.
Yep.
And that was the tipping point from where we had, if you look, 1999, Fox took 2 unknown directors from Australia, the Wachowski brothers, and they gave them buckets and buckets and buckets of money to make a story that no one had ever heard of, no one knew anything about, and they created a huge, huge sensation in The Matrix.
That did not need sequels, but was a huge movie.
I thought the sequels were actually not that bad, but
Second one, alright.
granted, but like I said, it was a new story, new idea, new characters, no one had seen it before, and they paid buckets and buckets of money and reaped excellent rewards with it.
Yeah.
Matrix was huge, and that was, like I said, that was 1999. That was right before everything went to shit in America in terms of our economy.
Yep.
Now, after that, what huge budget blockbusters have we really seen pitch original IPs? There have been a couple, granted.
Yeah.
But a lot of them have been recycled from books, with the Twilight movies,
Harry Potter.
with Harry Potters, with, was it Percy Jackson? But that freaking flopped. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Aragon was terrible.
Yeah.
But we see in comic books, and more freaking comic. We've got so many comic book movies now. You can't throw a freaking egg without hitting a comic book movie.
It's a good time.
Like I said, I love comic book movies, and I'm happy about it. But it still shows an unwillingness to do something new. All those comic book stories are recycled old stories.
We say, well, I agree with that, but the only reason I'll disagree with the thing about the whole an unwillingness to do something new, partially because you got to think if you're Disney that runs Marvel, or you're Warner Brothers, whoever's running DC, why would you fix something that's not broken?
Exactly, that's my point though. Granted, all these comic movies have made Disney and Marvel so much money, it's not even real.
And DC is just about to hit that,
and
too.
DC is
They're going to hit
it because that's what they do. I don't think DC is going to be nearly as effective as Marvel.
You'd be surprised. You never know.
I mean, granted, DC has the more well-known characters, but I don't think it's going to help them because the quality just isn't there to me.
But we don't know that yet. We haven't. All we've seen is Man of Steel. We haven't gotten to see anything else yet.
I think we're gonna get more of the same, but that's just me. I could be wrong. However, my point is that everyone's copying everyone else, and we're not seeing anything new, and we're getting this slow slide. And my question is, when is the ship gonna right, and someone's gonna take a chance, or is the wheels going to fall off the wagon at some point?
All I'll say is I don't ever see the wheels falling off the wagon. Because you say people aren't willing to spend their money. You and I, and people who don't necessarily have that expensive income all the time, maybe aren't. A lot of people are still seeing movies, even though. And we see a lot of movies, but you know what I mean? So it's like, let's say, we've discussed this before. Let's say, let's stick with comic book because it's kind of what I know more about. Let's say Marvel hits 2 flops. All that's going to do is maybe cancel a movie. There's no way they would change that whole lineup. It's the same with DC. Now, DC is different because they're just starting, but there's no way any of those movies are going to flop because the hype is so real. To where it doesn't matter if they're necessarily good, they're going to make money.
That ties into it a lot, though. Then you're not basing a movie on the quality of the movie you're getting. You're just basing it on whether it's popular or not.
Well, that's why the Academy Awards are the way they are, too. It's a giant popularity contest, except they don't care who makes the money. They're always pushing for what movie should be the best, even though that's a construed mess too. But
well, my thing is like, okay, let's look at video games again. Okay. We've got all of these reboots. We've got all of these.
You say all these reboots.
The only argument, these sequels.
I'll say sequels, but the only thing I'll say is like, other than Wolfenstein and Tomb Raider, I can't think of any other reboots. There are games that are getting brought up to the next gen, but that makes sense to me.
Reboot makes less sense. Well, reboot makes more sense from a video game standpoint because the technology's come so far over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Movie makes less sense, but granted, some of that's still true. However, we see all of these sequels and cookie-cutter games and the Maddens and...
Gotta go with my sports games.
Yeah.
The deal is there, though. To me, that's not even the same argument.
That is definitely the same argument.
How is that? Okay. To me, the fact that Call of Duty can bring a shooter out every year and it sells millions of copies makes no sense compared to a game where things change constantly.
Like what?
The rosters more than anything.
Information age. They can update them in 2 seconds.
Which is just what I was going to say. I'm not disagreeing with that. But I am saying they don't.
Yeah.
Because they're not dumb, and if they don't do that, then people have to buy the game to get the new roster.
Yeah. So I understand why they do it. My point is that it has created a culture of stagnation in the video game industry, especially.
But I will say this, too. Sometimes when that stagnation hits, people buck the system. NHL. They took 2 or 3 things away in NHL 15. People flipped out. First thing they brought back in 16. So it's like, some things, they do listen to some things. And that's EA, which I'm the only one. I'm the only one in the county that likes EA games. the way it seems
That's
sometimes.
because they're a terrible company and terrible people.
Hey, I'm not saying they're a good company. I'm just saying, I play sports games a lot, and I'm there. But
my point is, though, that it has brought the gaming to a place where it started to collapse onto itself.
gaming,
Now, granted, there's been exceptions. GTA 5, amazing
GTA
stuff
in general.
from Rockstar. Now, you don't have to like Grand Theft Auto. You don't have to like what it stands for or believes in, but they are great games.
And Rocksteady is somebody who's doing them a lot.
Yeah.
The Arkham games, it's Rocksteady.
Mm-hmm.
That's Rockstar. Rocksteady is doing it also with the Batman games. Rockstar is doing it really well with GTA.
And, granted, like I said, that's horrible and gratuitous violence and sex.
But that's
granted.
also not a cookie cutter. Okay, it could be considered a cookie cutter game because you are doing the same things. But it's not, I'm pushing this out every year.
But
and it's gonna be the same
the
exact thing.
quality of the game is exceptional. The
Yes.
storytelling and the characters are exceptional.
Yes.
I will give it a pass for gratuitous violence and sex.
Well, that's your call to play it or not.
But you see what they have done, and then you see, it's like I said, I'm an MMO junkie, so I'm going to use MMOs. You see, we had WoW, right?
Mm-hmm.
WoW made bajillions of dollars. They out GDP'd small nations with the money they made on WoW. And by doing so, they managed to buy themselves back from one of the largest conglomerates in the world because they made that much money.
Yep.
Now they're an independent organization. They bought themselves back from Vivendi, and then they bought a controlling share of Activision. So it's now Activision Blizzard, and it's not Activision anymore who owns Blizzard. It is now Activision Blizzard. And Blizzard is the workhorse behind the whole thing. Now, then you got War, which I loved, but everyone else hated because it was a buggy, unfinished mess.
War.
Warhammer Age of Reckoning.
Okay.
Used the IP that
Tabletop
Warcraft
Warhammer.
was originally designed off of after
Really?
games. See, what? Little known fact. Warcraft, Blizzard originally went to Games Workshop to get the Warhammer IP for their game of Warcraft. Games Workshop refused them. So, Blizzard took the Warhammer lore, twisted it slightly,
Yeah.
and released their own game called Warcraft Orcs vs. Humans.
Wow,
Which
I didn't
they
know
wanted
that.
to use the Warhammer Orcs vs. Humans.
Wow.
Now, but by doing so, they spawned an entire generation of great, great games in Warcraft 1, Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, and then WoW.
Which also
And
created
has their own
mods.
story. Now, also, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn series by Tad Williams, but the lore behind Warhammer 3 especially, and then WoW, is completely stolen wholesale from those books. Stolen. Not just copied, not just, used and reused, but actually 100% stolen. I don't know how there were no lawsuits over it, honestly. But that's a whole nother argument for a whole nother show. Anyway, point being that Warhammer then created this empire out of WoW, and like I said, it's not, you don't judge the game on the game anymore. You judge it on what it has become, which is, like I said, an entire subculture. Now, War copied WoW and failed.
Yeah.
EA, then, that was EA with War, it failed. EA copies again. Star Wars The Old Republic. This time they get BioWare, who was an old school maker.
Knights of the Old Republic.
Was it Black Isle? No, it was BioWare. BioWare made Knights of the Old Republic. They made a bunch of really great RPGs. They're great RPG people. And they made an MMO where they copy and pasted the mechanics from WoW, put them in the Star Wars setting, and released it with great voice acting gameplay.
And people loved it.
No, they didn't. They hated it.
Well, now there are some people that
It's
love
come back a little since they
it.
made it free to play.
It's a cult game.
But they spent $300 million on this game. $300 million. And it sucked. It was terrible. It still is terrible. It's better, and I think they finally broken even now that they went free to play, and they've had a little bit of success with it. But it was terrible. Again, not because they did something different, but because they did something the same. Then Rift came out. Copy and pasted. Then Guild Wars 2 came out. Actually did its own thing. Pretty good game. But my point is that you've got all these people copying each other, and it's all crap. And movies have gotten to that point in a lot of ways, obviously, where everyone's copying each other all the time, and there's nothing new being created or done, which has spurred on the indie revolution, especially in gaming.
Oh, huge.
All of these huge corporations that refuse to make all these ideas that people have had and these great stories. So, luckily, technology has gotten to the point where now these kids can do it themselves, and they have. And they have spawned an entire genre
That's
of...
what Mojang did.
Yeah, exactly. You've ended up with things like Minecraft and Braid and Limbo and
Terraria.
World of Goo and Terraria and
There's a lot of them,
Starbound,
yeah,
and
yeah.
there are hundreds and there are thousands of indie games out there,
Yep.
and not all of them are quality, but a lot of them are really good.
And you're talking every genre under the sun.
Every genre under the sun, and it has been a huge renaissance for gaming. It has brought PC gaming back from the brink of collapse into a powerhouse
Yep.
again, especially with Steam and Steam Greenlight. And Valve in particular have really pushed PC gaming back into the mainstream.
Because anybody with a game can get it online and sell it.
Now, like I said, anyone with a game can get online. Now that, and then there's Kickstarter, and that's a whole nother bag of cookies.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole nother conversation.
That'll be another
but it
topic.
plays into this a little
It
bit,
does.
where people have now bypassed all those suits to get their stories heard.
Well, Rooster Teeth, Super Troopers 2, The Broken Lizard,
Mm-hmm.
those guys are raising millions of dollars for a new movie because nobody else is going to pay for it.
No one else wants to pay for it.
Rooster Teeth, original IP,
Mm-hmm.
Broken Lizard, a sequel to Super Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
Both new,
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily brand new, but it's still that's the monster. I mean,
And there's this, like I said, there's this underground movement though of people who are fed up with this system and
and fighting.
have revolted.
Yep.
And now you've got people like EA and people making mobile games
Yep.
and making these low budget things where they give a couple dudes some money and throw them, but they, like I said, it's so, the whole thing is so silly to really, but like I said, it's madness to me, and I don't know where this thing is going to end up. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see where gaming ends up, where movies end up, and what we will see in the future. So what are we slated for? 30 more superhero movies?
It's something like 30 superhero movies in like 6 or 7 years.
Are we going to be sick of superhero movies in 6 years?
No,
I don't know.
that's the thing. I mean, maybe, and I think what'll happen is you'll get burned out on something, but I think the companies behind it are smart enough that there'll be enough of a change to keep people involved, and God knows there's enough stories from comics to do them.
Mm-hmm.
To where, if they're done well, which realistically so far they have been,
Mm-hmm.
recently, Green Lantern, the original Hulk,
Mm-hmm.
not as much, but I mean, as of the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, and like I said, in it's bled over into television as well. Like, when's the last time we saw a brand new interesting television series come out?
Breaking Bad,
Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, copied from a book.
The Walking Dead, copied from
Walking Dead, copied from a graphic novel. Flash and Arrow from
Comic
CW.
books.
CW, not super popular, but
They're doing good
I
things.
give them props for pushing the envelope on new ideas.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
They've got a lot. Well, that's comic books. That doesn't count.
So is CW.
Yeah, like I said, those are comic book movies too.
Yeah, yeah.
They jumped in the pot and they hit it big with Flash and Arrow. Those are super popular, and they
S.H.I.E.L.D. is
turned
too.
that. They pretty much turned that whole channel around.
DC is really doing well with their TVs right now.
It was like USA and Monk. Like before Monk, USA was pretty much on the verge of
USA
death.
used to have a lot of original IP, like Royal Pains, Monk.
And like I said, and Monk drove that because Monk got so popular, they had money to actually spend
Yeah.
and getting some decent stuff going. And same with CW.
And they're-
CW has been riding on the back of Supernatural
There's
for years.
there's still some original content, but it's nowhere near where it used to be. Like
Mhm.
everything used to be something new, and or it was the cookie cutter sitcom. But that's besides the point. That's a whole different thing because TV, there's only so many things.
Well, see, there doesn't have to be though. Like you see, like you get interesting series like what was that Galahad that came out last fall?
Galahad,
which was a musical comedy like
that was 4 episodes.
I haven't watched it, granted, and it got canceled.
Yeah.
But to me,
that's a huge thing that was there.
That's moving in the right direction.
Yep.
Like that is doing something good because there are a lot of stories to tell that no one is told, and that to me is a shame.
I agree. Now, here's my next question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What if you're doing something like Disney and you're taking old cartoons and making them live action? Is that considered a reboot for you, or is that considered something different?
That's considered a reboot.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I just wondering. I mean, because to me, it could go either way.
And like I said, it's the whole thing is just so
convoluted,
and just it feels sleazy to me. I mean, take a look at something like High School DxD. Now, anime has always been a breeding ground for teenage masculine sort of horniness comedy things. And anime especially has always been a genre where that's happens a lot. Now, granted, television in general has become that way a lot, but anime especially has been guilty of that. Now, you take something like High School DxD, which is it was written by a kid in high school, and it's got a ton of naked girls in it, and the main character is this everyman who is an idiot and stupid and ridiculously horny. But it's done in a lighthearted, fun manner. And to me, granted, is it demeaning to women? Definitely. Is it not a great message? Granted. But it is so purely teenage male that you can't help but appreciate it. It's completely hysterical. Seriously, it makes me laugh. So much, it's not even real. And I know people enjoy that sort of thing. But then you look at... Now, this is what... the third season came out last... Or is playing right now. So it's been, 6 years probably since the first one came out? But you see the things that have tried to copy it. And you see these new series that come out trying to catch that. And they're just...
not the same.
It's become much more sleazy than funny.
You gotta push the envelope.
They're pushing the envelope, but they're pushing it in a not good direction.
I agree.
And I believe, what was it, last fall? It was like the Testament of the Sister New Devil or something. And I couldn't watch it. And I'm from the internet generation where I see things that will horrify everyone.
I really wish you would have just stopped and said, I'm from the internet, and just kept going.
Yeah, well, like I said, I've seen things that would horrify everyone. And I couldn't watch that show. I mean, it was so gratuitous. And, I just couldn't do it. And it's not... I mean, some of it's funny, but it's not... It's lost that lighthearted luster, and it's just become something... I don't know.
To push the envelope. Well, it's the same thing that movies are doing. Sometimes that movies are doing now.
Yeah, it's like I don't even want. It's just gratuity for the sake of gratuity.
Yeah.
It's just ugly and bad, and as time goes on, you see more and more of that, where you take a idea that, granted, at its root, is not the most pure or innocent one, but then you bastardize it even further to make it mass media. And you're, again, like I said with television, you are destroying your own market. And I don't know, I'm assuming it's because of the economy, but like I said, it's pushing things in a direction that is not positive by any means.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's so weird because, when you have a 30-year gap, to me, I can understand a reboot of a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still odd to think about some of these reboots and the way they're doing things.
My thing is, aren't there better movies to reboot if you're going to do a reboot?
Well, that's
what
the
is
thing,
the purpose of rebooting some of these? And like, what are we really gaining right now in terms of movies?
Like, I'll give you an example. They're talking about whether or not they should redo Jaws. It's a big topic some people are talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Jaws was good.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Some people, it's their favorite movie, first
Mm-hmm.
Jaws. If you think about how that shark could be done today
Mm-hmm.
compared to then,
Mm-hmm.
could be better.
Could be better.
Then you look at this. You ever seen the first Point Break?
No, what's that about?
Point Break, Keanu Reeves and Gary Busey and Patrick Swayze. Undercover FBI agent infiltrates a extreme sport gang of robbers
Mm-hmm.
and tries to bust them pretty much, and things go haywire.
Mm-hmm.
The original, not necessarily a great movie, maybe a little bit of a cult classic.
Mm-hmm.
More than a regular cult classic. A lot of people know Point Break. Either way, Christmas Day this year, a new Point Break comes out, and it looks like they did as much of the exact same movie as they could with lesser known actors, and people are like, meh. First trailer just came out, and they're like, meh.
What's to be excited about?
I think it depends on the IP sometimes.
Where are the new stories, man? Like,
That's what I agree completely with that. The fact that half the movies that come out now are based off books, which is fine.
I agree. There's a lot of books that deserve movies that don't have them.
I agree. Well, look, Gone Girl last year
Mm-hmm.
was a great movie.
I never saw it, but
You need
everyone
to.
has told me I need
It's a
to.
great movie, based on a book. It was good. Then you have, then there's still other. Well, you're looking at Hunger Games. They're still finishing that series.
Mm-hmm.
Great series,
Mm-hmm.
and they're making lots of money on that. Good
Mhm.
book series.
Mm-hmm.
Like you had named some of it. The Maze Runner now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a sequel to that coming out this year
Mm-hmm.
or next year.
Mhm.
The same thing. Another book series. So it's like it's hit and miss. Now they're talking about making a spin-off original IP for Harry Potter that's based off of a book mentioned in one of the classes when he was in Hogwarts.
Yeah, that could be a cool idea, though,
Yeah,
because
but that's an original IP off of something people know.
Yeah, well, granted, that's a little bit of a loophole, but my point is that we're not seeing the things that we used to see in terms of the ability for people to take chances, and it's been one of the things that has bugged me for the last few years, and it's getting worse instead of better. Granted, in video game space, that has been solved a lot by the up-and-coming indie movement.
Yep.
But there isn't one of those for movies. Granted, Kickstarter has done a lot of that, and we'll talk
And
about
indie
Kickstarter
movies
some
are
other day.
still around. Like I said, like Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
That started with no money and made millions, and now there's like 8 of them.
Yeah, and they're all terrible.
But can you say that? All of them are making millions of dollars.
Well, it's a whole thing, though.
I'm just saying. That's the whole.
Granted, though.
But that's the argument we're fighting, because it's like it doesn't matter if the movie's good or not.
Mm-hmm.
If it's making millions of dollars, they're going to make more of them. Especially because it's a shoestring budget to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So they're making all this money, and it's just profit.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, though, to me, I don't know when or if the pendulum is going to swing back the other way. I assume it will. Everything is cyclical in life. But like I said, it's to
Swing
me,
back to
though,
what, though? More original IP?
Well,
Or
companies
finally-
more willing to put some money on the table
I would agree with
for
that.
something unknown and undone and
Yeah, I
something
would
new.
agree with that.
And like I said, I think it'll happen at some point, especially the economy seems to be sort of stabilizing right now and moving in a positive direction, at least a little. But like I said, I'm optimistic on what we hopefully will see in the future.
Yeah, I think there still is some original IP coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, a lot of times they're not that popular.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them are still worth seeing.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of them are still worth seeing. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Because even like Jurassic World, that wasn't a Crichton book. Park, yes. World, no. You know
That's
what I
not
mean?
original IP though. That's the same IP. It's just an expanded story.
Well, it's the same thing with that Potter thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Like I said, that's
the loophole.
a loophole.
But you have to think though, considering what's coming out, it's still something new.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like last year, you had John Wick, you had The Equalizer, which is almost the same movie.
Granted.
But they both were new IP.
Yeah, but they were also indie films.
Actually, Equalizer was not new IP. It was based off of a TV show from the 70s, but still.
John Wick, though, indie film. That's low budget. That was him.
Was it indie?
Yeah, that was him putting up his own money. That didn't have big studio dollars.
And it didn't make a lot, but they're doing a sequel because of how popular it was.
Yeah, like I said, it was a solid movie. It made money because someone was willing to take a chance with money.
Yep.
And like I said, it's hopefully going to sort itself out with all of this lower budget stuff happening and making good stories. But like I said, it has irked me where things are headed. And like I said, hopefully it will repair itself before too much damage is done, and it seems to be. But it was something I wanted to discuss and talk about and see what you as viewers thought.
Well, and my thought too is, like, realistically, the sad thing is there is no damage done.
I think there's been damage done.
Granted,
that damage might not be numerical in dollar signs.
Yeah.
But I think there has been damage done.
That makes sense. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'd agree with that. Yeah. I mean, as much as you're not seeing anybody shut down, thankfully, you're not, I mean, God knows the money's still in the box office, so you're not seeing anything. You're not seeing spending lower, which I think if it got bad, I could see that. So at least that's not happened yet. But, I mean, the mere fact that they're going back to the well and they finally fought hard enough to make more Star Wars movies, and they're going to be doing movies spun off of that in the next few years and things like that. I mean, I think it's inevitable that it's going to continue. I mean, there's and like we said, we don't know what's coming with, like, a lot of the comic book stuff, but we know enough what's coming to see that even a bad movie is going to make enough money that they're going to do the sequel, and they're going to make the next movie in the line, and they're going to continue. The only ones that not necessarily are for sure are your Fox's Fantastic Four that comes out this year, and anything X-Men now, because those are the only two that aren't one of the big two that aren't DC or Marvel. So that's our main question.
But again, it shows more of movie companies betting on the sheer horse.
I'm not disagreeing.
And it's, because, and especially like those Harry Potter movies, it doesn't matter if they're complete garbage. They're still going to make $1 billion.
Heck yeah. It's the same thing with Marvel right now.
And it's the next Marvel movie. Regardless of whether it's terrible or it is good, it's going to make $1 billion.
Ant-Man is kind of a wild
Ant-Man's kind of weird.
So we don't know. But, I mean, we said the same with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it blew everybody's door.
Well, you loved it, Gary. I didn't. I wasn't that impressed.
It doesn't matter what we thought.
Your favorite thing.
It doesn't matter what we thought, though. It still made like hundreds of millions of dollars.
It does matter. Damn it, the people want to know, Sarah. Our 18 subscribers.
Listen, you can go watch 20. You can go watch our other videos. We talk about it, and you'll learn that yes, I liked it a lot more than Kevin did. But that's besides the point. So it's like, as long as the money is there and it's coming into the hands of the studios, it's not going to... I mean, what we think doesn't matter. Here it matters. But in the long term, it doesn't matter. They're still going to be making movies whether you like them or not. You didn't like Mad Max. They've already announced another Mad Max. It's coming out. Mad Max Wasteland. It's already been announced.
The next one might not be as terrible, though, because we'll have some background information on the characters.
We didn't get any of this movie. Where are they going to do the background?
I don't know. It can happen. You don't know.
Are they going to put it between and have, like, a comic book that explains it all? Granted, there's a Mad Max video game that looks pretty good. That's besides the point.
Maybe that's what we'll get our plot.
Hey, we'll learn something because the movie didn't tell us much of anything.
All right. I think we'll call it here since now we're just arguing. So hopefully we have done our extended cut. I think we're up to like 80 minutes of audio plus.
Yeah. So this will probably be a two-parter.
We'll chop this up a bit for you guys, and then we'll slap it up on the internet. But again, thanks for tuning in, and hopefully someone will listen to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, my main thing is if you guys have any topics that you'd like to hear us talk about, leave them in the comments.
We will talk about them.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. Like I said, he and I both have these notebooks that if we think of something right then, we're writing it down. So we'll bring this to the table. We're not telling each other what they are. so we're not having anything prepared. We both knew about this one. That's why we've went 40-some minutes talking about it. But other than that, it's kind of whatever one of us is doing or the other one's thinking about is what we're dealing with. So if you have any topics, odds are you have something you'd love to hear us discuss. And that's possibly a scary thought. But let us know in the comments or on Facebook or wherever else you see these. Like, subscribe. If you have anybody that's willing to watch all of this or part of this, share it. It's probably random, I know, but play this in the background where you're doing homework. You're hearing us rant and rave, you might get a laugh. But like any other time.
Thanks for staying till after the credits.